welcome Exiles. Today I have a very special video because I have to say, crafting is broken again. We are potentially in a league where crafting is actually better than it was in Harvest. Not as quick or as easy to reach the ceiling of Harvest, but we can take it past the ceiling of Harvest and we can get pretty close to the ceiling of Harvest pretty quick. Let me break it down for you. So, Recombinators. There are armor recombinators, jewelry, and weapon. These things are very strong. I think they're like Awakener orbs on crack in terms of how powerful they are. You can be the judge of it. Point is, they're way more common than Awakener's orbs. You can specifically aim to farm them with... There's a node in here that makes the Sentinel reward type more common. I kind of forget where it was, but point is, you can kind of target farm these to try to make Sentinel rewards more common, and if you're juicing with Sentinels, you're going to be dropping these. Grimroll, I think by day one, he said he'd already dropped like 4 of them, and that was him just getting up into maps and initial mapping. If you're actually intentionally juicing Sentinel, I think these things are going to be pretty farmable. I bet Grimroll will have a strategy on how to do that, but I want to talk about the crafting side of it because I've been experimenting with it, and you can do some pretty cool things. Now let's start off with one of the things that I think are the coolest, and that's transferring something like spell suppression, a fractured spell suppression mod, to an energy shield base. I think this is one of the most powerful things you can do, which is taking a powerful fracture mod from a crap base or something that's not a good base and putting it on a good base. There could be lots of scenarios like, hey, you have something that has a bad item level, but a really good mod. You can then transfer that mod onto a good item. So, for example, these items have item level 86. Oh, actually, this is 78. I guess that guy scammed me. Whoever traded me this helmet, I guess, scammed me because it was supposed to be item level 86 helmet. So that's a bit of a bummer there. But item level 86 shield here. I don't know. I guess I should check the item level more carefully. Point is, you can take a powerful mod like the evasion mod spell suppression, which is probably one of the best mods in the game currently, and put it on a base that couldn't even get it. For crafting these gear pieces, now all I have to do is spam dense fossils. I can get really high energy shield and then have spell suppress in an energy shield base build, which is crazy powerful. Another powerful thing you can do is you can get multiple temple mods on one item. Look at these pairs of gloves. I ran a temple, I got a glove pair with the lightning temple mod and a glove pair with the cold temple mod. These are both giga strong suffixes. And I thought, you know what, let me just chuck those together. And lo and behold, now I have a double suffix with cold and lightning res T1s plus percent crit chance and cold damage against shield enemies. Stuff like this is crazy strong, and you can do this with more specific, more powerful, more niche mods. Things like Delve mods plus Spectre chest, things like Guazzalidi's life chest. There's a lot of cool combinations where you can take mods that are special and unique, and normally you couldn't transfer it to another item, or you couldn't transfer it to an item with a good item level. Now you can. Even further, you can now make double fractured items. You can take a good fracture on a bad item, you can transfer it to potentially a good base, and then maybe you could take another fracture and transfer it back onto that base as well. You have ways of modifying these items, taking good fractures, putting them onto good bases, and even getting multiple fractures. This means now with these double fractures, I have 2 good suffixes. If I throw an Essence of Delirium, I now have 3 good suffixes, and I just have to kind of do this a couple times until I get maybe an okay life roll, and then I have a really good ring without much crafting cost, so to speak. And then some other experimentation I was running is I was crafting some amulets, and I was seeing what I could do if I just took, like, I bought a +1 fire spell and I bought a life amulet. And I did this with a marble amulet, and I got +1 fire spell, life, lightning res, and I got some okay rolls. Things I've noticed while doing this is the common outcomes I could see is it was heavily weighted. If you're combining 2 rare items with a bunch of different mods, it's heavily weighted to get the mods from the items. It can add new modifiers that aren't on either of the items, but it is very heavily weighted, probably 10 to 20 to 30 times more likely to be mods from one of the 2 items type of things. It's very rare you get just a new mod into the pool from my experience. I've done maybe 15 recombinators at this point, maybe 20. I've done quite a few. And so powerful things I was able to do is create amulets that had I was going for trying to make a Fizz Seismic Track amulet, and the best one I was able to get was Life, Crit Multi, and +1 Fizz. And this was me just basically taking amulets. Sorry about that, I'm on D&D now. So, and when I was going to craft these sorts of items, I was basically trying to say, okay, if I can take an item that has 2 okay mods, or one really good mod like +1 Fizz, and then an item that has 2 okay mods, like an item with Life and Crit Multi, and combine those, I can start getting pretty impressive items like getting Life, Crit Multi, and +1 Fizz. Stuff like this would be a really high damage amulet for something like Seismic Trap. So I think this has crazy potential. One of the best potentials actually is weapon crafting. I started thinking, I'm playing Righteous Fire. What's one of the hardest things to craft with Righteous Fire? It's your scepter. Getting +1 all spell and +1 fire spells is basically theoretically very impossible in terms of currency wise without getting something like a +1 fracture and then working from there. And the scepter craft ends up being a massive investment. With weapon recombinators, this was actually pretty easy to do. It was just a matter of getting a +1 fire, which on itself is pretty easy to do, and then a +1 all spell, which is on itself pretty easy to do. And then if you recombinate them, there's a fairly decent options depending on what mods you have there, depending on how restricted you make the pool, that you're going to get both those mods on the scepter. For the scepter craft, for example, it took me 3 tries. And then versus some of the amulet crafts I got on some of the first tries, it's a little bit of RNG, sometimes a 50-50 if you're just doing like 5 mod rare with 5 mod rare, that you're going to get one of each of the mods you want. You know, you're taking a gamble there. But I believe the system can start to be honed in on and focused down to forcing specific outcomes. The reason I believe this is possible is because I definitely could tell from doing multiple of these that the system seems to be a weighting system where it's a multiplier on the likelihood of seeing the mods that are already on the items to see those most likely versus new mods being introduced. So if you were to do things like take a 1 mod item and a 1 mod item, just alt spamming for 2 good mods, and you combine those, the likelihood that you're going to get both those mods on the new item is significantly higher in comparison to taking a 5 mod item and a 5 mod item, because there's a lot more mods that have the higher weighting that are fighting over that mod pool to occur. Also, from my experience, the mods could roll anywhere from like 3 to 6 mods. I think it maybe could roll even less mods. I don't know what all the unpredictabilities are. There is some things like I noticed that it could de-level a mod a tier, or it could add a new mod that wasn't on the thing, but those are less likely to happen. And so these are just some of the things I've discovered while playing with the system, and I have to say, if you can buy these things for what they are now, 3C a pop, they're insane value. Now, I want to showcase using them, so for my character, you'll notice I'm going for Spell Suppress on ES gear. One of the things I want to get Spell Suppress on is my Sork Gloves, because I'm going to be crafting this gear for my Righteous Fire Trickster. And so we have a Spell Suppress glove here. So my planning for this is, I scour these items down, the only mod is the Spell Suppress. I think it should be heavily weighted that we get Spell Suppress as the outcome. Now, it's going to be a 50-50 whether or not it chooses the Slink Gloves again or the Sork Gloves again, but a item level 86 Sork Glove, that's cheap. That's reproducible. You can get that anywhere. Getting a Fractured Spell Suppress, that's going to be basically a random drop that's a lot more restricted, or you even have to fracture it yourself. That's expensive. So the idea here is if I eliminate all the mods, I am very highly likely to get Spell Suppress on the recombination. So if I recombinate this, do I get Spell Suppress back? No, I don't. So that is the example, I guess, of getting a white item, which I didn't realize was even possible. So right now I'm a little bit sad. A little bit, but we'll be back with a different Spell Suppress pair. Alright, so I'm glad that happened because it showed us a new thing, which is you can actually make a normal item with recombinators. I'm starting to think maybe there is some risk case of just throwing a 1 mod item in here. So let's say maybe there's a scenario where recombinators might have a scenario where they say, hey, I want to subtract 1 mod from the mod pool, and if you just have 1 mod, maybe that forces it to be normal. I don't know. Let's try a different scenario where we have this rolled, but this not rolled, which is what I did previously when I was able to get these 2 to transfer over. And let's see if we're lucky. I've also had the scenario where I'll recombine, it selects Slink Gloves, but we get the suppress back and we just have to go again, which is what happened here. And we got mostly the same mods we had before. You'll notice when you do this recombination process, it will highlight if it adds a new mod. It'll say, okay, this mod was here, this mod was here, this mod was here, but this mod's different. That's a nice thing I think that they added, so that way you could tell, hey, what changed, or what's the new thing, or what got thrown in there. And you could see that for the most part, it was mods that were previously on the item. And I do believe, this is just tinfoil hat theory, I don't have enough, you know, I don't have the currency to really test case a bunch of these things, but I do believe when you're, from my experience at least, when I've done recombinators with spell suppress, whenever it's selected the same base that the spell suppress already had, except for this scenario where it subtracted the one mod off the item, I've always gotten spell suppress back with the fracture. So I think maybe there's some control fracturing it has. Maybe it's weight or factored into the process of staying on the item more likely than other things. I don't know. I'm going to go get another Sork base and we'll go again. All right, here we are again. Let's hope we can actually pick the Sork base this time instead of the Slink Gloves and get Spell Suppress on there. We got Sork base and we got Spell Suppress. There you have it. As far as transferring Spell Suppress has gone, I have done this onto 3 items now. I have only had the Spell Suppress get deleted once, which was this pair of gloves you saw here. So I think if you're going for the route of transferring Spell Suppress to an ES base or an armor base from an evasion base, I think you want to play it on the safe side and have it maybe a 4 mod rare or something like that. I think that might be the better play in make it a safer transfer. I don't know if that's just, from my experience, I've only gotten to use these things like 15 times. I'm going to keep playing with these things the whole league, and I'm going to make, hopefully, an actual detailed guide when I've really nailed down the science of how these things work, how to manipulate them, how to control them, what we can do with meta mods. But that's going to take some exalts to do, and right now I'm kind of poor. I've been spending my currency on my life-based trickster that I'm going to hopefully upgrade to ES base, and this gear is going to help me do that, but I haven't had the currency to really spend and dial down the science of this stuff, but I will do that in the future, and I'll probably make another video on this in the future. But just know, this stuff is really cool. Definitely check it out. Consider using it as a basically cheap but actually more powerful Awaken Orb, because you can Awaken Orb affixes from Delve items, from Incursion items, Fractured items. You can do some really interesting things with these things. They're crazy powerful. I hope you all enjoy. Take care, Exiles.